Well, hello, it's Kathy and Ruby Renfield, and something a little bit different for the next few videos. This is a series of videos coming up that record the ride from home out to Scone for an overnight stay and then a ride back the next day over a weekend.
Yep.
This ride is something that I had wanted to do for a little while, but I wanted to wait until I had my full license, which I do now, and I'm very excited about. And so I put a post out to the lovely people in the Women's Riders group. Marie and Sam said yes, and so did Fiona. So the first part of the ride is heading from Jerry's at Kulnura out to the trading post at Laguna. But let's just take a step back a little bit. What I did was I asked Claude AI to map me a route from Gosford out to Scone that was suitable to for a learner rider and avoided any freeway rides. And I also asked it to plot some stops along the way every 30 or 40 minutes at a cafe so that we could have a rest. And I did that because I wasn't really sure how long I could sit in the saddle and ride for before I got tired or before I got a sore butt. So I thought 30 to 40 minutes should be okay, and so that's what I went with. So all the way along we stop every 30 or 40 minutes, have a break, whether that's on the side of the road or at a cafe. I haven't used the footage from home to Kulnura because I didn't have the camera set quite right on my chest and it was a bit wonky donkey, so I just thought I'd use the footage from Kulnura on. What we did do as well though is we met two other lovely people, Leanne and Shay, out at Jerry's, and they are learner riders. And although they didn't want to come for the overnight ride, they thought that might be a bit too much and they had to work, they were happy to do just a small section or two with us, which was lovely. So got to meet new friends. Also, when we got to Kulnura, Jerry's at Kulnura, the lovely Rochelle was there. She had ridden out there by herself just to have a bit of a snack. She did not ride with us, but we had a lovely catch up, so that was good. So what I have done is I've put the gear that usually sits in the pannier bags are in there. So that was rain gear, tire pressure kit, and a couple of other bits and pieces are in the panniers. And in the bag on the back of the bike I have my clothes and toiletries. Honestly, I've never packed so lightly in all my life. A change of underwear, some pajamas, a toothbrush, a toothpaste, some face moisturiser, and a pair of pants and a top for when I arrived at the place that we're staying in, and some socks in case I needed to change the socks in case I got wet feet. And that was it. So I've honestly never packed so light. So anyway, that was in the bag behind me. I had a new pair of gloves. Well, I've had them for a while but haven't used them, and they have got fluffy lining on the inside and they were lovely and comfy. So I've got those on. I've got thermals under my pants. I've got my ski socks on. I've got two thermals under my leather jacket, and I've got a neck buff head thingy. It's still cold here and winter here in Australia, so I needed to rug up and make sure I was comfortable. So the other thing I did was I installed the quad lock so that I could have my phone on the handlebar to map the route. That is connected to my cardo so that I could listen to music but also get the directions for the route. I was trying the carpool ride, but it arrived at the last minute, and I installed it okay, but I couldn't get all three devices to talk to each other. I couldn't get the Cardo to talk to the phone, and then for that to translate over to the carpool ride GPS. So I just thought, I'm not going to muck around with that and get myself in trouble. So I left that at home and just put the phone on the quad lock. That whole system worked really well. There's lots of things that I read about, it being an issue for vibration, and that's probably the case. I did get the dampener for it, and I did get the raincoat for the phone. It's not called a raincoat, I'm not sure what it's called, but I bought all of those pieces and I hooked it up, and honestly it worked really, really well. What I found was that when you're doing speeds of around 80, the sound in your helmet is quite loud, the road noise and the wind noise, and so it's actually hard to hear the music, even though it's got the better speakers, the Cardo Pack Talk Pro. I still didn't find it very good to listen to at those higher speeds. At the slower speeds, like 60 kilometers an hour and less, riding around town, it's perfect. Love it. But those those rides at higher speeds, not so great. What else can I tell you? I think there's a few things that I learnt on this ride. One of them is gravel is not our friend when we're on a motorbike, and I will tell you more about that in the coming videos. I learnt that 80 or 90 kilometers an hour is probably the max that I feel comfortable riding on Ruby Enfield. I know that she's capable of more than that, a bit more than that, but I don't know, I kind of felt like maybe she needed a sixth gear in there somewhere, and I'll talk about that more in future videos where we're on not the expressway, not quite sure what it's called, but the New England highway, where the speed zone was 100 kilometers an hour. I also learnt that some drivers are very, very disrespectful on the road, even though, at times I was doing a little less than the speed limit, maybe 10k less. They sit right up your butt, and so it's really hard to slow down to help them to get around you when they're so close to you, because you're worried that if you slow down, they're going to run into you from behind. So I didn't love that part of it, but luckily it only happened maybe once or twice on the trip, so that was good. Now, getting onto my full license was a little bit trickier than I anticipated. I have type 2 diabetes, which is managed by diet and medication, and I ticked the box that said I had type 2 diabetes when I went to upgrade my license. But because I ticked that box, I needed to have a medical assessment done by my doctor, and I had wanted to have my license sorted before I came on this trip, because that was the whole purpose of the trip, to celebrate getting my full license. Honestly, the amount of toing and froing and trying to get into appointments and get blood work done at the very last minute to get my blood sugar levels so that the doctor would sign off was a lot. But anyway, it's done. It's done for the next couple of years, and then when I have to go again, I'll go through the process again for my license for both my car and my motorbike. So the both of the licenses have now been aligned so that the due date for both is the same date. So that makes it a little bit easier. I don't have to go through the process twice at different times of the year. So that was all good. I enjoyed taking my P plates off. I've taken them off Rosie Vesperina and Ruby Renfield and popped those in the bin. They both had a bit of a hole in them, so it was time for them to go anyway. It felt a bit weird having the phone on the handlebars because I kept thinking, I'm going to get in trouble for this, even though I won't get in trouble for it. What I haven't worked out how to do with Cardo and the phone is use the voice commands. For some reason I couldn't get that working, and I don't know whether I'm just talking wrong or whether I'm supposed to say hey Siri or hey Cardo, but I couldn't get it to work, and so I just kind of left it because I was a bit out of time for it. I found using the AI tool really, really helpful. I think I've kind of learnt that you have to be very detailed and specific about what it is that you want, so that it gives you what you want. But what I asked it to do was give me that specific route to Scone that's suitable for a learner, that had stops every 30 to 40 minutes, that avoided the freeway, and it gave me that. Then I asked it to put that in a pretty format so I could post it on Facebook for the other ladies. I asked it to generate GPX files for me, and then I also asked it to generate turn-by-turn instructions in a Word document so that I could have that as a backup if the GPX files stopped working. And I fiddled around with using Google Maps, and also I fiddled around with Kalimoto, I fiddled around with Reva, and in the end I think the Kalimoto was probably the most accurate, but in the end it was just as easy to use Google Maps. I had studied the instructions that Claude AI had given me, so if I wasn't happy with what Google Maps native sort of directions was, I just plotted a few extra spots, a few extra plots on that map so that it routed in the area that I wanted to, and that worked really well. So I think it was handy kind of knowing the route altogether. In the next couple of videos I'll talk through them, the areas that we went through in those ones, but gosh, it was such a lovely ride. In this section there were some really tight kind of hairpinny bends, 15 kilometers an hour, which were a bit of a test, and we had a lot of discussion, particularly with Leanne and Shay, around what speed are we doing when we're doing these really tight corners, particularly the 15 kilometer ones. I think we said we were down in second gear, but they were talking about the fact that they got sort of flabbergasted a bit and thought they were in sixth gear, and it's hard being a learner, and I feel like I'm a learner in some ways as well, so it's really good to just have a chat about what it feels like, what your experience is. Look at this lovely just straight flat. I don't know whether I can see what the speedo's saying in terms of my speed, but I stayed either at the speed limit or maybe 10 under the speed limit most of the way on this first leg. The road was in pretty good condition. I think if you're a Central Coast person, you know that these roads are notorious for accidents, and so I think most coasties that ride these rides are just that little bit more cautious with how they ride it. I've been this route a couple of times, so I kind of know that there's some really sharp bends in there. But they're great fun. Like, these corners are just a lot of fun. They're these ones that are kind of 45 or 55 or what have you. They're just nice easy turns at a lower speed. Marie's up in front leading the way just for this first section because she knew the way to the trading post, although, you know, it's just follow the single road. But in my usual spatial navigation issue way, I wasn't 100% sure, even though I had the maps, and the trading post wasn't where I had originally picked for our first stop. I had picked a spot further along in Wollombi, but Marie had said, given how windy this road is, the learners might feel better being able to have a break a little bit earlier, because they might be a bit a bit tired from doing the windies if they're not used to doing them. And it was a very good call on Marie's part to stop earlier, although we did have a little mishap when we got to the trading post, which you'll see at the end of the video. Other information. I met somebody riding a Royal Enfield Gorilla, and it's a 450cc. A lovely person, and he was just talking through his decision making on getting the Gorilla. He had thought about the Himalayan or Himalayan. I don't know how you pronounce that word, but I've heard some say it's meant to be Himalayan, and others pronouncing it in YouTube clips as Himalayan, so I don't know which is right. Anyway, he was talking about the fact that he'd considered that, but the form factor, the enormous tank, just wasn't that appealing, so he went with the 450 Gorilla, and he was very, very happy with it. I like it. I think the back end of it just doesn't quite work for me of what the aesthetic that I like, but it certainly looked like a lovely machine, and he was very happy with it. So that's food for thought if I ever want to upgrade. Not that I'm in a position to upgrade. Lots of bikes coming the other direction. There was lots of bikes out generally, which is great to see, because the weather was, as you can see, it was amazing. It was supposed to rain, but it held off for this first few rides, so that was really good. My camera is a little wonky donkey on my neck. I think I was just worried about everything being okay and right, and I packed everything and all of that sort of thing, and the phone being right, that I didn't spend enough time making sure I had the camera in the right position. I do have one of those clamp things that clips onto the bottom of your helmet that you would then attach your camera to, and I did think maybe I should be using that instead. That way I don't have to worry about whether or not the camera is straight on my chest. Anyway, I might try that next time, but for all of this adventure, overnight adventure, it's just on the mount that goes around my neck. I did pack a bike lock for this. It's just a little handlebar one that goes on the right hand side, where the front brake lever is, and it kind of engages that front brake lever and locks it in place. There's plenty of them out there, but I used that just, I guess, to keep it safe. quite sure what I was adjusting there by taking my hand off the handlebar there, but that's probably a bit naughty. I do find I have to lift myself up on my pegs when I'm going over terrain that's quite bumpy, otherwise it hurts my butt. Isn't it lovely countryside though? Just beautiful. And not that many cars on the road. Oh, as I say that, there's 3 that come the other way. But not that many considering it's, you know, a Saturday and it's, I'm not quite sure what the time was. We met the girls at 10:45 at Jerry's, so, you know, it's 11:30. You would have thought that there'd be lots of people travelling to lunch or out to the wineries. So I think we were quite lucky with the traffic on the way, on this leg anyway. Look at that church on the side. So it's a church that somebody's turned into a house. Fabulous. We are about to arrive at our destination at the trading post. You will see that we had some trouble with the gravel, and poor Leanne went kaplonk with her bike when we tried to navigate the gravel. So that was a good lesson for us all. But here we are arriving at the trading post. Thank you so much for watching part 1. There'll be a few more parts to come. Bye for now.